Author Show. I'm your host, but that just shows you where we are in this world. And I'm host of this show. But I am so thrilled for our first opportunity to actually talk with authors in depth with the three wonderful, amazing authors of The Evolving Learner. And that is Lady Rawl. Hi there, lady. Good to see you. Christy Andre, hello there. How you doing? And Lauren Steinman. Did I get that right, Lauren? I got it.
Right.
I'm
yes.
so excited. And by the way, I'm so happy to have you here. And I would like to say a special thank you to the three of you, because this is our very first show that we're doing. And the fact that you would have faith to be here and lend us of your hearts and souls and minds today. I don't know how to give you a digital gift, but I'm throwing it at you right now. Thank you so much for being here. We're so thrilled. I wish we could cue the applause, because that's really what is deserved right now for all of you. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us. It's a honor.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about you first. When people take a step to write a book, doing it on your own is one thing, but to do it in collaboration with others is an entirely different experience. I'm assuming, are you guys friends?
I'd like to think so.
Do you like each other?
On the other side, we're still friends, right?
Of course.
That's good. So how did it come about that the three of you got together? How did your relationships begin together from a professional standpoint? And then how did it evolve for you deciding, hey, you know what? I think it'd be a really good idea for us to write this book.
Well, can I start? Because I actually want to share that Q played a part in this.
I know.
So I really wanted to write a book on professional learning, and I just didn't want to do it by myself. I just really wanted to make sure there were other perspectives, and I happened to be walking the halls of Spring Q.
Wow. And
I passed my good friend, Robert Craven. And he's like,
I've heard of Robert at Saddleback Valley.
I mean, yes. I know. Let me just pick up that name I dropped. Former Q board president. And I just said, I'm in the process of, getting ready to write this book, but I really feel like I need some people with me and join me in this journey. And he goes, I know exactly who you should do it with.
Wow.
And he said, Christy and Lauren. And I was like, okay. And he set up a meeting. Y'all remember we went to was it a Panera?
Yeah.
Corner Bakery.
Corner Bakery.
Oh, sorry. I will make that up to you too. But yes, it was a Corner Bakery, and we sat and we had lunch. Robert was there for the introductions, and
wow.
it was a collaboration from then on.
So there you are at this bakery, and I'm not going to ask you what you ordered. We'll leave that alone. But there you are at this bakery. How did Robert talk to you, Christy, and to you, Lauren? What how did he set this meeting up with the two of you?
To be fair, we weren't fully front loaded. It was more like we want to talk about an exciting project and that kind of thing too, which Christy and I are always game for something new and interesting. And actually we had just finished up our dissertation where we were writing together. And so we had come off of a very large writing project and needed to fill our time somehow. But truly, I mean, I think that this project worked because we have a lot of similar viewpoints, but come from different spaces. And when we came together to discuss kind of what this book could look like and what ideas we all had, it really just flowed and went together really easily. I thought there wasn't this very long, arduous process of being how are we going to get on the same page, literally, right? And it was not like that. So in that sense, the book really just kind of popped up once we put our heads together. The process of writing a book, I will say, is just, it can be long, but it was really, I thought, a really fun and new project for all of us.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'm not quite ready to leave Panera Bread yet. I want to, Christy, there you were at the table, right? What was the premise that you were presented with at the table that kind of quickly bonded you all together so quickly?
Yeah, it was literally like, hey, come meet Lainey. I want you to meet someone. And we were like, Lauren and I both were like, who? What? Sure. Like we had no idea. And so we get there, and I just remember sitting there being like, what is this? What is this? And like Lainey, I think, was like, I want to write a book. And we were like, oh, okay. Like it was like, okay, this is what this is. And it was so great because Lainey, I think right off the bat, we all got along really well together, and it just felt really right. And she kind of had Evolving Learner and had been working through just that that idea the last few years. And so to be able to kind of lay it out for us, we were like, of course, that sounds great. We'd love to do that.
All right. So that brings us out of that, finally gets us out of Panera Bread into the book. What is the overarching message of the book of Evolving Learner that united you all together so quickly? What is that right to the point message of the book that obviously stirred all of you to be willing to do this work because you wanted to?
I mean, I think the big thing is continuous improvement through cycles of inquiry. But the also important is that has to happen with kids, peers, and the world. And I really feel like I grew, and I say this all the time, I don't write books because I have the answers, it's because I want to find the answers. And so that was really part of the beauty of this collaboration, is because we knew that SEL needed to be a major component of this book. And Christy and Lauren really brought that in, helped me grow in that space. And I just think that those are like the big rocks of what we want people to walk away with, because it's what we learned. You know, we have to be continuously improving, cycles of inquiry, kids, peers in the world, and social emotional learning for all. So,
well, and I think bringing it back to Q again, like, I mean, I think all of us being involved in Q and in spaces like that where you're energized by the people around you and you are connecting, and we wanted to like replicate that feeling for a lot of people and say, you don't have to wait for like that one special conference or that one moment or that one PD that you get or may not get. You can generate your own learning at any time, and like there's so many tools out there and so many people out there that are willing to help, and like how can we forge those connections and empower people? So that's a big piece of it too.
Well, you've definitely ignited quite a few questions for me. One, I'll try to get to all of them because it's so yummy what you're saying. Let's start first with this idea of, if you talked about this idea of enjoying it, like you're talking about being energized and enjoying it. And it seems to me that if you're enjoying something, if you're enjoying learning, then that doesn't count. It's got to hurt. And it has to be something where, you can hardly wait for it to be over, for it to matter. Does that sound somewhat familiar to what you've seen out there and how you guys are giving an option at what that maybe that approach?
Breaking it down. We're breaking that down. I mean, I agree. That's the traditional, I think, paradigm or idea when you're an educator. And that's the other thing that that was like one of our first conversations, right? Is that professional development is this idea of something happening to you, right? That works on you, that you didn't choose, that you didn't want. You don't want to learn it anyway. You're in a sit and get position where you're just in a chair and chained there. And we all had this moment where we're like, we don't want that for our students. And we talk constantly about how we don't want that for students. So why do we keep doing that to the adults, right? So that's, I think, was a big moment of us all putting our heads together and going, well, then what shift does that look like?
Wow. Christy, can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it was really personal. I had lived out of the country for a couple of years and was in this space of, there wasn't a lot of teachers to collaborate. There wasn't a lot of PD happening. I was in South Africa. And so I was like, okay, well, how do I learn? Because I truly feel like I wanted to keep, right? Like you wanted to keep going.
What did you say?
How do I learn? How do I learn?
Why are you asking that question?
Well, what's interesting is that I feel like we even felt it during COVID, right? It was COVID the last 2 years. We were so focused on just making sure that everybody was okay that we kind of stopped the cycle, we wanted to we've already given them technology, we've given them this, and like teachers were in survival mode. So it didn't feel like the right time to give out this professional learning. And I really truly saw more of this burnout happen, because if you're not continuously learning, right, then you're just stuck in it and you're not getting energized by that learning and trying new things and trying the cycles of inquiry. And so that's what happened to me while I was living overseas. And it wasn't until I found ISTE that I was like, okay, I can do this. I can start learning from my peers. I can start reaching out and finding other people to really grow me so that I can have best practices in my own classroom.
Wow. And then for this approach to potentially count in a school district, for it to be adopted within a school district, so that, it doesn't have to be okay, we're all going to meet in the gymnasium on this date and get something that half of us already know to begin with, right? Lainey, you were talking about how both Christy and Lauren brought a social emotional perspective to the work you had already started. Can you speak a little bit to how that supercharged the work?
Well, oh gosh, well, that's it really is. I had to tie back to what Christy was saying about the burnout. I mean, I will just say that I was probably not a great participant in professional development. I was the one who walked in and was like, I mean, there's a name for it. I won't say it in mixed company, resting face, something about that. Like I'm sure I feel so much guilt that I probably was not a very good participant. The poor speaker who had to look at my face that was probably not filled with joy. And there was no connection to it. There was no connection to the purpose. There was no connection to the group. It was just like, okay, we're in the multi-purpose room. We've adopted a new textbook and you're all going to hear about this. No focus on the plot.
Goody.
And we're very clear in the book that it's not that we don't ever get together. Obviously, we need to get together. We want to come together for this collective cycle of inquiry. But we also need to have our own individual cycles of inquiry. We need to have PLCs and coaching. And so we get in the book, we're very specific about like, yeah, we know we're going to do some work as a whole staff. We have to do that. But not everything should happen as a whole staff. And I mean, as a professional learning provider, I've had to do the stuff where it's like, I can't wait to show you this. It applies nothing to these people in the room. I'm so glad you're here. And you're going to hate me for like an hour, but I'm happy you're here. So you know what I mean? It's like we have to have a purpose, and then also that social emotional learning piece. I really grew in that. Now I do all of my professional learning. I incorporate the 3 signature practices from Castle. I'm always doing a welcoming inclusion activity, always making sure there's engaging strategies, and always doing an optimistic closure. And that's just kind of the way that I have grown to bring in that social emotional learning piece for all, not just for kids, which is essential, but also for the adults.
Lady, can you rewind that again? That was so delicious what you said. Could you say it again slower so we can it's like you're throwing out like filet mignons or something. Could you go back and say it a little slower? Like what are those?
Yep.
Hit it again.
Yeah. So Castle has the 3 signature practices.
Right.
The first is the welcoming inclusion activity. We're going to do something to bring us all together and kind of set the stage. Then there's engaging strategies, which I'd like to think I've always been doing, but now I'm extra intentional. What are the things that I'm doing to make sure that people are having a chance to have that co-constructing of knowledge, to have that peer-to-peer learning, that kind of stuff. And then there's an optimistic closure, which I will say can sound a little misleading when you hear optimistic, like, oh, do we have to end on a happy note? And it's really more about reflecting on what we've done together and thinking about how to move forward. And so those are the things that, through this work, I have evolved, pun intended.
That's awesome.
Thank you. I have evolved to make sure that whatever I'm doing with adults is best practice for professional learning. That includes social emotional learning.
Right.
Well, and even just to piggyback on that, we talk about learning from like our peers in PLCs or with coaching. And I think one thing that we really named throughout the book with social emotional learning is just that a lot of shame comes around asking for help, right?
Oh my gosh. Oh, stop the press on that one. You are
Right?
so right about, oh my gosh. Think about it, students as well,
Yeah.
right? But go ahead, continue, please.
Yeah, and I mean just the idea of like these teachers at whatever season they're in, and they're frustrated, and their students aren't learning, but they don't know who to ask, and just
Wow.
the vulnerability it takes to kind of be like, hey, here's my scores, help me, right?
Yeah.
And also the idea of like being seen and heard. And I feel like if we're in a school where we're not being seen or heard, and we're just being given that PD, we don't have choice in it, right? And so we're stuck kind of in our own practice. And so we kind of went through naming some of those ideas, and then also giving strategies. And the idea of the strategies, like one of the ones that Lainey mentioned, was not only for our own practice as adults, but also ideas for our students, whether that be brain breaks, whether that be like ideas of a calendar that you go through with different little things throughout the month. Just lots of different affirmations that you can do. Our school were like bucket fillers. So things that can really unite you as a human to human and work together. Because we know it's just so important to have those tough conversations that come through that shame and vulnerability.
Yeah.
Well, and one more piggyback, and not to bring it back to COVID, but I don't think anyone can have a conversation without mentioning COVID these days. It's like the law.
That's right. Yeah.
But I think that another SEL piece that's kind of woven through that we talk a lot about too is sort of like that self-examination of, if you are feeling unfulfilled in your work, or if you are unhappy in a space, reflecting back on like why that may be. Do I need more from this job? Do I feel like I need to learn more to do better work? Do I want to connect more with my peers? Do I need to connect better with my students? And sort of piecing that together by looking outward and inward, right? So that's all throughout the book as well.
Wow. And what I would love to get, we're running out of time, but what I wanted to get from you, and I'm not sure I'm going to get it, but what I want to hear is an example of how you've heard somebody engage with your book and it really made a difference for them. I know you have some of these stories. I'd like to hear one of them, if you don't mind.
Sure. I don't mind sharing one.
Yeah.
So I get to work with leaders in all different spaces and places. And I have a cohort of about like 40, 45 administrators in Florida, and they're all reading the book. And the feedback that they have given me is that they felt so empowered. We've got the research in there. We're telling them about the joists and showers. Like, hey, if you're not doing the coaching and the PLCs, if you're not having that mentoring piece in there, this stuff's not getting into the classroom. So that's been really helpful to them. And because we advocate, and I know that Lauren and Christy both said this, we advocate throughout the whole book about learner choice, not just for kids, for adults too. I think that both the teachers and the administrators who are reading this book have felt empowered to, yes, be a part of the learning community within their school, but also have the freedom to make their own choices in how they can continue to grow professionally, continuously in the cycle of inquiry.
Agree. And I think too, like a lot of times in the education profession, like there's this concept of needing permission to do certain things, like permission to learn about certain things and move forward in any space. And really, I think we try to pull that back and say, you don't need permission to go out and pursue things that interest you, or learn new things, or connect with people that may not be in your immediate sphere of influence, right? And so that's kind of, I think, the call to action of the book. And that's really what I think people also connect with is that that's the empowerment piece. And that's what I think fills all of our hearts as the authors, right? Is just sharing that with people.
Wow. I got to tell you, I'm very inspired by what you're saying. And the idea of the evolving learner, it seems like you've helped bring educators together, administrators together. And what's crazy, or beautiful, better said, is that it's also seeming to break down the differentiation between teacher, student, and administrator, that we're all learners together. And there's no shame in asking. In fact, actually, one might argue that asking questions is the hunger of learning. And it seems like we're serving up great food, but nobody's hungry. So, so it's wonderful that you guys are helping to create hunger in people and freeing that up, so there's no shame in being hungry. It's a beautiful thing to be hungry. So thank you so much. And I wanted to get, we have a little segment here called What's Your Take? So are you ready for What's Your Take? If there's one thing you could get rid of today in education, what would it be? Lainey.
Stop putting more things on teachers' plates and administrators' plates without taking other things off.
Beautiful. Christy.
Force PD, not giving people choice.
So
Right?
Is that an acronym would be FPD, I think. Is that correct? Yeah. That's beautiful.
We'll go a couple different ways with that, but we'll keep it.
Well, I don't know. There's an acronym for everything, right? And then Lauren.
I'm going to do double negative here, but like stop not asking questions, right? So involve people in the conversation. So, don't just assume and move on and make the unilateral choice for everyone.
I think that is great advice from all of you. Thank you so much for that. Let's do it a positive. There's one thing that you would love to see more of. What would it be?
Oh, gosh. Well, Lauren, that was kind of mine. I was going to see more choice, right? Like, so you were talking about the asking questions and giving choice. So that would be it.
Okay.
Give more choice. We focus too much on seat time and not enough on deliverables. Let's give people choice so they can grow professionally.
Beautiful.
What's best for them.
Lauren?
Mine would be that it's okay to focus on the social emotional. There is no too much. Like, I feel like if we can have that foundation, just looking at even Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the only way to get to self-actualization is to really go through and make sure that kids are belonging, right? And if they don't feel that way, and if our staff doesn't feel that way, then no learning is happening. So I really feel like just continuing to have that foundation, allowing our staffs and our kids to really feel connected is huge. Keep that in there. Lauren?
Oh, it's me now?
There is three of you. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to be
more
less academic, I guess, but just say find the joy, because the joy is there every day. And when you're, every day there's so many reasons for us to put our heads down and go, this is really hard and this is really tough, and I don't know that I want to come back tomorrow. Some days, it's just how the reality of it.
That's
but
for sure.
The joy is there. And Christy and I are principals. All I have to do is just walk into a classroom and see kids and connect, and it re-energizes and recenters me to say, like, this is why I'm here. So just seek it out. So
beautiful. Well, Lainey, Christy, and Lauren, thank you so much for being our very first Meet the Authors show production. I'm so energized by the three of you. I can understand why you guys hit it off so quickly. And I do hope that you can continue to get your voices and your souls and your hearts out there for people to hear. It's got to be making a huge difference. It certainly has inspired me. So thank you so much. And that kind of concludes our time together with Meet the Authors. I want to remind everybody that Fall Q registration is coming up real soon. Fall Q October 22nd, 23rd. So you want to register. I think the registration is open now. Let me check. Oh, there it is. It's saying it's open now. So yes, it's open now. This has been session 1, volume 1 of Meet the Authors. And I'm your host, Glenn Warren. Thank you so much for tuning in. And again, thank you, Lainey, Lauren, and Christy. You guys are amazing. I'm so glad you're out there. Yay. Love to you too.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn.